So now we're going to imagine that you're sitting down with a student who you know has been bullied. Maybe you got the report from somebody else, maybe you got the report from the student, you have done the screening, you know that it's not conflict. You're going to sit down with that child and now you're going to start the coaching process. The first thing you want to do is affirm that child's feelings. You want to say things like, gosh, that had to be really hard, or I'm wondering what that was like for you. I'm really glad you came and we're talking about it. What you might want to do now is kind of stop and think about if you were in a situation where you were being intimidated by someone and then somebody else was kind of helping you out here, getting some information, supporting you, what would help you feel comfortable, and what are some things that you would want that person to say? Think about some things that you might want to say to a student to help them feel like they're welcome to talk with you. If you are watching this with other people, you might want to talk among yourselves. The next step in coaching a student who is bullied is to ask questions. This is one where it's really important to be curious again. I guess I feel like I can't say that word curious enough, because we want these kids who already feel intimidated, who already might feel ashamed, who might feel like there's something wrong with them. We want to get a lot of information. We want to kind of know how have they responded, what are some of the things they tried, what happened. And so we want to ask them in a very easygoing way. Kids so often are going to expect that they have to give a right answer. And here we just want to gather information. So you might want to say things like, I'm wondering what happened just before that. I'm wondering what you tried. And some of the questions I said before, like, have you had a chance to tell your mom? Are you feeling safe about this? And one of the things I like to ask is, have you noticed anybody else having this happen to them? Was anybody else doing the bullying? Was anybody around? What are your ideas about what should happen? So continuing the coaching process, the next step then is to identify what has and what has not worked in the past. And this is where it's really important to find that delicate balance. We're going to be asking questions, but we don't want the child to feel like we're judging them because they didn't do something. So, you might want to say, so what did you do then? And did that work? Was it helpful? Did anybody else help you? You kind of want to use this as your opportunity to help them develop some more appropriate behavior. This next step is really critical. You want to generate some solutions for the future. So, if this is a child who kind of puts himself out there to be an easy target, so to speak, you might want to gently suggest some different things. Like, sometimes kids find that it's helpful if they say, why would you say that to me? Or sometimes kids find it helpful if they go in and play with somebody who is nice to them and they don't go back around the person who's being mean to them. And then you might help them create a plan. You might write it down. Part of that plan might be that you're going to call their teacher, you're going to call their parents, you're going to let other people know what they're going to try. Here's a chance for you to teach them some assertiveness. You might do some role playing. You might help them identify other kids or other staff members who can help them. How might their parents help them? Might it be a ride? Might it be, finding somebody else to play with, a different way to walk home? Sometimes this plan has to be a temporary one until the situation can be handled and the student who's doing the bullying can be given a consequence and develop their plan. But here's where you might want to do role play and help this child to learn how to be a little more assertive. So what you want to do is be careful that you're not having the person be aggressive. We don't want to ever suggest to kids that they retaliate or they try to overpower somebody, but we want them not to be like that typical doormat or that passive person who says, oh gosh, nobody's ever going to like me. They're kind of walking around like Eeyore. The world is terrible. We want them to be respectful of themselves, but also respectful of other people. We want them to have a strong stance to their body. We want a strong, important voice. We want them to be reminded that if they're bullied, that doesn't mean that there's something wrong with them. The person who's bullying is making the inappropriate choices. We want them to have confidence. We want them to find some ways that they can feel important. And so part of the plan might be getting involved in activities that they're good at, hanging around with people who they can help or who they can have fun with. It's all part of a plan that's going to help them to be less likely to be bullied again and less likely to be bullied by somebody else in the future. Here's a place I'd like you to stop and think about changing behavior, because in coaching somebody who's been bullied and in coaching somebody who has bullied somebody, we're asking these kids to change behavior. It seems like we would do that a little bit more when we're coaching the student who's done the bullying, but actually oftentimes kids who are bullied would benefit by changing their behavior to being more assertive. So before we switch into looking at how you would coach somebody who's been bullying somebody, I want you to think about just the dynamics of changing behavior. So stop and think for a minute about when you have ever had a behavior you wanted to change. Maybe it's a habit you want to stop, maybe it's something you want to start, maybe somebody has asked you to change behavior. So a couple things to think about is, how motivated were you to change behavior when it was somebody else's idea? What did the person say or do that either helped you be more or less motivated? And how hard was it to make that change? Stop and reflect on that and what then you might be able to do to help kids who you are trying to help change their behavior. The very last step in coaching the student who is bullied is to, in the future, to follow up with them. Kind of check on their safety, how are things going, is there anything else you can do? And then here's a chance to see, have they been able to change that behavior, or might they need a little more practice with you?